You're welcome back again. Now, we're still in the corridors of power, only this time in Lagos, where we have once again witnessed a spectacle of political resilience, strategic maneuvering, and institutional compromise. Now, the dramatic return of Lagos State House of Assembly Speaker Mudashiru Obasa has sent shockwaves through the political landscape, reigniting debates over the rule of law, legislative independence, and of course also the entrenched power structures that actually shape governance in Nigeria's commercial capital. Now, just weeks ago, the Lagos Assembly was embroiled in intense turmoil, with Obasa's leadership under severe scrutiny and his political survival, well, hanging by the thread, let's put it so. The conflict escalated into a full-blown crisis, with power blocks within the ruling party jostling for control. Yet, in a stunning turn of events, Obasa has not only weathered the storm, but returned to his seat of power like he never left, raising pertinent questions. What due process followed, or was this a calculated political maneuver? What does this reinstatement say about the balance of power within Lagos politics? And
so, more importantly, what are the long-term implications for governance, democracy, and accountability? And so to dissect this issue from legal, political, and governance perspectives, we're joined, first of all, by he is the former Labour Party 2023 Lagos State Governorship Candidate, and it's none other than Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, and he joins us live in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much
for joining us.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you. I mean, we're also, during the course of this conversation, we're going to be joined by Professor Anthony Kila. He's the Director General, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Hopefully, he will join us during the course of this discussion. Now, so much has happened in Lagos to begin with. Let me start with your general take on all this happened. Obasa has returned in what is now described as both a political comeback and a strategic power move. What's your take on this development?
Spare nothing, please.
There's nothing strategic about his comeback. It's just the level of state capture of Lagos has just been laid bare for all of us to see. This is, for me, it's an abomination. It's an abomination in the sense that a majority of a state assembly made a decision to select another speaker to represent them. And that decision was not respected. They had to witness the state assembly be invaded by men with weapons. The DSS come out to say that those men were not DSS operatives. Till today, we don't know who those armed men are. They discovered stash of weapons at the State Assembly. Till today, we don't know why those weapons were in the State Assembly. They started a process in court where the majority of the State Assembly members came out to say fully that they stand behind their decision. They're going to go through the legal process. But somehow, they were still pressurized and forced to take somebody that they've already alleged for gross financial misconduct, huge amounts of money. And also, when you understand that Lagos State has the largest budget for the State Assembly, over 120-something billion. The other state that comes close to that is Plateau State, which is about 45 billion. So Lagos State is about 5 states combined in terms of the budget for the State Assembly. We spend so much of our Commonwealth on that State Assembly, and this is what we get, where they cannot even represent their constituents and the interests of Lagosians freely, because ultimately the interest of Lagosians is cutting down on financial misappropriation. The idea that someone is spending 17 billion on a gate, these are things that his people alleged him of doing. And there's been no investigation into any of that, and they've just brought him back. So it has been laid bare before us, one, that democracy, the will of the people, the will of even their own people does not matter. There's a state capture, and it works completely for the benefit of a certain power block. And that's all they're there to do, rubber stamp and follow instructions.
So I'm going to come back to you guys. I have a couple of questions that will follow what you have just said, but I'm told that we have with us Professor Anthony Kila. He is joining us via video call. He's the Director General, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Professor Kila, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, sir. So I'm hoping that you heard Mr. Rhodes-Vivour here and his submission regarding the situation in the Lagos State House of Assembly and the structure that he has laid down regarding the fact that these senators actually chose somebody else, but then again, what he describes as state capture seems to have taken over the processes. Now, let's talk processes. In the first place, Professor, was process followed when it came to his impeachment, when it came to his removal? Was process followed? And then in furtherance to that, his coming back, is that a return to process? Professor, please.
Well, what I think in terms of process, yes, in terms of process, it's good to be here. I think that it's important, for citizens and residents to look at the process more than the politics. And in terms of process, it is safe to say at the point of removal, overall due process was followed in the sense that more than a qualified majority voted out the speaker. I understand that some people have argued, some of my legal colleagues have argued that because the speaker was not served, nor was he present during the hearing, I think particularly because he was not served, that there are grounds to dispute that process. And on the other hand, the process by which it was reinstated was also done, unanimously, and nobody objected, nor did anybody bring up another name. So in terms of process, I think they're more or less safe. The problem is less of the process and more of the politics. And when you look at the politics, you see what you realize is that if you're not a politician, if you're not interested in getting them out, you have less passion. What you have is more concern with the level of leadership that we have. So we've had 49 days of motion without movement, because what did they do? They dismissed the speaker, brought in another speaker. In the middle of that, they cried, they marched, they sang. DSS came in, DSS did not come in. People speculated and there were rumors. Then, 49 days later, we just returned to where we are. The speaker, the lady speaker, Miranda, resigned. The old one, Obasa, came back, and the speaker went back to be a deputy speaker. I listed out to say that they did everything and nothing. This is just an infighting between groups. What I would accuse them for are two things. Number one is the clumsiness with which they manage this thing in front of people. They look like those spouses or family members that call themselves names in public or go to social media to post something about themselves. The other side, though, which is very important, is to test the fiber of these people we call honorable.
We seem to be having issues there with Professor Kila's connectivity. We'll try to bring him on, all thanks to the gremlins. Back here in the studio, we have with us the one and only Mr. Rhodes-Vivour. He is the former governorship candidate for Lagos State. I have to ask you about Lagos politics, right? Mm-hmm. The perception about Lagos politics is that there's a single power block that dominates, the political or the corridors of power. With this reinstatement of Obasa, does it uphold that perception?
Oh, certainly. It upholds it in every way, and it even shows that even within their party, they do not have respect for the people that have been voted into office. So usually, when you think about politics and how it should be, a person that's in the State Assembly has a certain amount of constituency backing that got that person into office. Now, when that kind of person is not respected, their wills and desires are not respected, especially when you consider the majority of them voted in a certain direction, it shows you that the entire APC structure just exists as an SPV for the appropriation of resources from Lagos State and the perpetuation of a certain group of people in office and in power. That's what it is.
It's the ambiguity for me. Each time we talk about state capture or people who are profiting from Lagos State, it's always very ambiguous. And I'm waiting for the day when somebody will come out and actually say, the names. Who,
Bola
who are
Ahmed
you- who are
Tinubu,
you
your
talking about?
president, is the one that is masterminding the state capture of Lagos State, along with the GAC, who did not actually agree with him. The Governor's Advisory Council from Baba Olusi and all of them, they stood for a certain amount of time with the State Assembly, right? And according to reports and what we've read over the past couple of weeks, Bola Ahmed Tinubu felt miffed that the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, felt miffed that the State Assembly could make this decision without carrying him along, right? But you are the president of Nigeria. What concerns you? What is going on in State Assembly? They are supposed to be independent legislators who all got into office with their own mandate. And if the majority of them feel a certain way, they should be allowed to express that. That's why we're in a democracy, right? And again, when a democratic principle no longer works, that's why we call it state capture, because there's a seeming appearance of democracy, but in the reality, the will of the people are not followed.
So what you're saying is that every instance that led back to Obasa's return was orchestrated by who?
I would say the president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
But they have said that this is not a case of federal might. It has nothing to do with federal might and you know, the president. I remember when the assistant to the Speaker Obasa was here, he was saying that this had nothing to do. But he seemed also very sure about his return to the House, but they've always said it has nothing to do with the president.
You see, the problem with APC is that their politics is about deception, manipulation, and a lot of lies and propaganda. They know they are doing A, but they'll come and talk about B and C. Okay, how was it that the police escort, the security aids of a sitting speaker was withdrawn, and then Obasa had security given to him? How is that till today nobody can actually explain to us how armed men desecrated the State Assembly and invaded it, and DSS is denying, and so many other agencies are denying it. All of this has to come with the backing of the federal government, right? And from everything that has come out in the papers and all of that, it's clear that Obasa, Mudashiru Obasa, the current speaker, had the backing of the federal government.
Let me ask you, now that it makes you wonder if the president is truly and indeed, you know, very instrumental in his reinstatement. It makes you wonder, how did they go behind him to remove him as speaker, or vote him out, or with a vote of no confidence? But most importantly, is you have talked about the state capture, that it's not really democracy, but it's more of a power block that dominates Lagos State, and it has a strong cloud on it. So, with that being noted, you are opposition. You ran for office in 2023. We have seen John Doe, who was also your opponent as well during the running, has now exited PDP. What is the future like for democracy and governance in Lagos? Can this power block be dismantled?
Certainly. I mean, the power block was dismantled when Bola Ahmed Tinubu lost Lagos in his own election. It shows that the people of Lagos actually want to change. They want something different. In relation to when they extended the time for the governorship election, obviously they took time to make plans for violence and intimidation and all of that. And genuinely, we believe that electronic votes will be transmitted. So obviously, we have learned from all those mistakes. So we are at this point preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. And I would have to say that since I've gotten into politics, there's been no point where politics in Lagos has been this electric. You know, you have opposition that is not just going quiet and going to sleep and then coming back 6 months to election. You are saying, I'm on TV, people, Funsho Duarte is on TV, people are talking, people are putting out opposition stances and taking positions and showing Lagosians that, you know, there's an option. There are
Is it strong enough? Is it enough? Is it strong enough?
You know, when you think about strong enough, I think that at the end of the day, Lagosians just need to see a light bearer, right? That's what they need to see. They need to see people that have not lost hope. They need to see people that are consistent and persistent. And the main strength, the only way that things are going to change in Lagos is by power of the people. It's not going to be by power of force or by power of spending. is by the people coming, as they did in 2023, and start. Now, what we need to organize is to ensure that people are going to be able to vote freely. Nobody is going to be able to intimidate anybody. Nobody is going to be able to hurt anybody and get away with it. And that is where we are now. Because the people must be allowed to have their say in an election.
Can I throw another equation inside of the math exam? Now, there were plenty of talks regarding talks regarding the constituencies of these members, these speakers, past and present. Obasa is from Agege,
yes.
and then
Miranda is from
Mojisola Miranda, Honorable Mojisola Miranda. It is Women's Day. Is from Apapa. And there were talks about how this plays into the politics of things and why there seems to be a race to get Obasa back in as Speaker. What do you say to that? But I'm being informed that we have Professor Kila. We have a very iffy network with him, so we want to get done with Professor before we come for your response to that question.
No problem.
Professor, the past week has shown that, a few weeks has shown that, I'm being informed that his, oh dear, I'm so sorry. We'll have to come back to you regarding that math equation.
Okay. So to me, after the same president pushed a Muslim ticket to take over a Fulani Muslim that had created so much division in Nigeria, I don't think he has the moral standing to be talking about zoning, right, and balancing. For me, I see the APC use the word balancing just as a tool to get what they want.
For the sake of our viewers, could you explain how this zoning plays into the grand scheme of things, please?
Okay, so from what they described, they want a situation where the governor is from, there are 3 central districts. So there's Lagos Central, there's Lagos West, there's Lagos East. So they want a situation where the governor, the deputy governor, and the Speaker of the House all come from, represent the 3 central districts. But at the same time, there was conversation about somebody else coming into position that comes from Lagos West, from Badagry division or from the Ajurumi division. There are other people. Lagos West is 10 local governments, right? And they have, the APC has a majority, right, in the State Assembly. So they have representatives in that entire central district, right? And they could have selected anybody else. But the thing is, they needed Obasa to come back because he's a major clog in the wheel of state capture. He's a major clog for them. So the whole...
Is this by virtue of the size of his constituency?
No,
when it comes
what is
to
the size of
and
the constituency? Alimosho is way bigger. Alimosho is the biggest local government by population. It's not about the size. There's so many other local governments that... Badagry has been left out of the equation for so long. They have given to House the Speaker from Badagry. The entire Badagry division has not really experienced good governance or experienced the advantage of good government. They could have given to somebody from that division. They didn't, right? So it's not about that. Those are just again, it's like the more you look, the less you see. Those are just the narratives they put out there just to get him in, right? And then he's staying there again. They just proceeded to restore the structure and status quo that they've been enjoying.
So what power they're inside of the Agege constituency if it's not the size?
It's about him and his loyalty to the president and his loyalty to the state and process of state capture.
So you're
that's
alleging
where it begins,
payback.
that's where it ends. State capture, yeah, that's what it is. It's a mechanism to allow for government to continue to perpetuate themselves and get the benefits of the state for themselves.
I find Lagos very precarious and very peculiar, especially when it comes to the fact that it's not just politics in terms of high society and social class. You know, in politics, there's also some sort of power tussle in there as well. There's a political class. There's also the lineage, or in your case, that happened, you know, Isaiah, son of the soil, and you had to go as far as tracing back your descendants to say that you're actually one of the first families in Lagos, but also the royal class as well.
Yes.
Is that the case with Honorable Mojisola Miranda?
Yes, and that's why on this particular issue is a very painful one for Lagosians like myself, Lagosians, indigenous Lagosians, because one, this is the first time we're having a female speaker in Lagos State. And we're talking about balancing. We don't have, the deputy is not a female. Having a female, especially on International Women's Day, something to talk about, we should have representation of a female in position in office in Lagos State. That's the first thing. Secondly, This is a woman whose lineage, literally, these were people that owned the lands all of Lagos Central, right? She's a royal descendant of Lagos State. She's a daughter of Lagos. And indigents of Lagos have been clamoring to have greater say in the affairs of Lagos State, to be at the helm of affairs in Lagos State. And that's why they came out fully in her support. Unfortunately, again, that has been pushed aside. And I feel that this has also rallied a lot of indigenous families and people of Lagos to start to understand that, you know what, they need to start taking a firmer stand in Lagos State.
The politics of Lagos, let's circle back to it. You ran for 2023 alongside yourself, Doherty, Jandor, and then the current governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. I would never forget his comments when he was saying that, he was saying something, I think he was granting a radio interview, one of the radio stations, and said that you needed more to be a governor of Lagos State. But Jandor has exited PDP, right? As we gear towards 2027, 2 years down the line, it starts now. Jandor has exited PDP. PDP seems to be struggling in terms of opposition, not only at the state level, but also on the federal level as well, when it comes to strong voice and strong opposition to speak truth to power. You were formerly a member of PDP before exiting and then going to Labour Party. Towards 2027, is there a likelihood of you switching camps? Are you going to PDP? Would you still be with Labour Party? Is this move calculated for the PDP? Do they have a strong backing, or ahead of 2027?
I think the PDP finds itself in a very peculiar dilemma, especially at the national level. But I think this is clear for everybody to see. I think that to win the next elections, there has to be a coming together of the majority of political parties and a collaboration that's going to happen. And those conversations are currently ongoing. I think that what most politicians need to focus on doing right now is building up their base, looking at what happened at the last election and start correcting for those mistakes, right? And we need to be highly organized, because the people that we're dealing with are highly organized.
So are you talking about a coalition? Are you talking about parties coming together, or people exiting parties to go to stronger parties?
No. The coalition. The coalition. Yes, I think that if you are in a strong party, I'm in a strong party. Labour Party did fantastically well in Lagos State. Our ESCOs, our chairperson were fantastic. You don't see them going quiet. They're still up front. They're still, doing what they're supposed to do. And that is something that's very admirable, because that's not been seen in Lagos politics for a very long time. So for us, we're in conversations with many other parties to see how we can come together towards 2027.
And do you think that's a solution in dismantling the current status quo in terms of the power block? Because I ask because the APC is a metamorphosis of what it continued to evolve, right? For them to still have the kind of power cloud that they have over the state, they had to continue to evolve, and now to the point where they're now on a national level, and they're very aggressive in trying to take over the other states that it wasn't theirs, trying to switch it over from PDP or Labour Party to the same way you see in the US when it goes from blue state to red state. Do you see this, with this speaking to other parties, is there going to be a merger of some sort? Would Labour Party metamorphose and you see others, other factions of different political parties come together and maybe a name change?
I don't see a name change happening. I don't even think you can register a new party in this kind of government. Nobody's going to allow you to do that.
I think it's an Action Congress and then,
that one, I think if Jonathan looks back, he would understand. President Jonathan, sorry.
Yes.
If he looks back, he would have seen the loopholes he left. And unfortunately, people that benefited from those loopholes are far more aggressive and closed all those doors. So we are going to have to be very creative with the kind of opposition we play. But honestly, these are people that cannot come out and campaign based on the antecedents or what they've done. This is a governor that avoided and dodged all the debates. And then when we won the presidential election in Lagos State, he became a hairdresser and electrician and an usher all in 1 week, right? So these are not people that won based on their ideas. Let's make it clear These people won based on violence and intimidation. And everybody in Lagos saw it. America put out a statement on that. The European Union put out a statement on that. So when we talk about them as they are sophisticated, no, they spend a lot of their energy on trying to intimidate and use money and violence to secure power. Now, the opposition must understand that you cannot be a gentleman and be going into politics expecting that the other person is going to be a gentleman. What they are is what they are. They've shown us what they are. Now we must respond to that. And that's where we are now. It's not about ideas. It's not about the benefits they brought to Lagosians. Because if they have, all they need to just come out and say is, look at how many affordable housing we've done for all these people. Mm-hmm. Look at how many children are now back in school and have fantastic education. Look at how we can open the taps in Lagos Island, Apapa, and everywhere the way we used to open it in 1910. And we could just drink water and nobody has to sink boreholes. Look at how our water corporation is working. They've had the opportunity for two decades, 20 years, to build up such amazing performance, and they cannot use the excuse that there is no money. Lagos State has the most money in Nigeria.
Let me piggyback off of what you both have just been discussing. Regarding the fact that there doesn't seem to be a strong opposition for the APC, and the other parties are either witnessing people stepping out, you're calling for a coalition to make them stronger. Is this the right time? Especially noting that from the events of the past 2 weeks, we've noticed the fissures inside of the APC, that the House is eating itself from the inside out, it would seem, where you have legislators who are opposing the speaker and calling for another one, yet being thwarted and saying, hey, no, you get this one, this is what you get because you didn't follow due process, everything being considered. What's happening inside of the APC regarding the divisions, and is this the opportune time for any other party, maybe not the PDP, maybe a coalition, to actually take advantage and take advantage generally? Let's focus on the APC and the divisions therein.
You see, divisions will always happen in any power structure where the person that's holding that rope pulls too tightly. Because at a certain point, people have grown. They want to be able to express themselves. It's like even a parent. If you have a child that's growing up, you can tell a child, sit down, go to your room. But the child becomes a teenager. The child also wants to express themselves. If you continue treating them like the way you were treating them as a child, they will push back. And that's what is currently happening. Now, I know that the Labour Party have been informed. There's been some conversation between Labour Party and the members of the State Assembly. Where that goes to, we will see in time. But then, you know, there's also I won't say a DNA that you need to have to be able to succeed in the APC, which is really one of just listening to the Godfather, accepting it, you know, just towing the line, right? And that's why, to be fair, no matter how much you want to criticize State Assembly, it took a lot of courage for them to be able to take this decision, because it goes against the nature of the APC, which is one of servitude, and you just agree to what is said from the top. Ultimately, they eventually back down, but if they are able to step out, there are parties that will embrace them.
Don't go. Based on that, is this the end, or will there be repercussions to pay for these members that perhaps were not all with the Obasa?
Most certainly.
He has said,
that's what they say. That's what they say.
No witch hunting.
That's what they say.
What do you see going forward?
It's going very vindictive. I don't see any of them getting a ticket back in APC. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I mean, Obasa has been speaker for over a decade, if I'm not mistaken. If his people say he has not managed them properly and they voted against him, what would they have cost the presidency to just say, okay, we accept. Okay, let's find somebody else that can also fit that mold. Well, it shouldn't have cost anything. But now you're going against the majority of the State Assembly's wish to prove and express your power. That's what this has come down to.
It's a very heavy allegation.
It is.
A very, very heavy allegation.
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's a heavy allegation. I'm saying it is what happened.
It is what it is. What you say.
But I must talk about, because it's International Women's Day,
And it's my birthday as well.
Happy
Congratulations.
birthday!
Thank you.
Oh my goodness, happy birthday to you.
nice.
So happy birthday to you, and also
you.
it's International Women's Day month and day and weekend.
Yeah.
If we look at the history of women's participation and the number, with each election cycle, especially since the inception of APC at the federal level, it has declined completely. On the Lagos State side of things, this is first ever we're going to have a female speaker, and that is Honorable Mojisola Miranda, who has now resigned completely. And so it begs to ask the question about whether or not APC has done fantastically well, or how would you score them in terms of pushing, for women inclusion?
I mean, based on what has just happened, we'll give them a 0. Because again, you cannot tell me that it's more important to have somebody from a senatorial district, and it is important for women who make up over half of our population to see somebody that represents them at a solid position in the power structure. I think that's the most important balancing that needs to be done. And also, it's the picture of it, right? If women are looking and seeing that majority of people in politics, in positions of power, are men, obviously there's also the thinking subconsciously that starts to say it's men, that this thing is for men, right? So it also reduces the natural uptake of women to just say, okay, I should go into politics. Because when you look at the optics of it, it just looks like a man's world. It's a man's occupation, it's a man's thing. And that's why I would say, with the way they've handled the speakership, because how many women are even in the State Assembly? And if somebody had emerged that way, fine, let her be. At the end of the day, it's 2 years. After 2 years, you do another election. And if that does not work, somebody else can come in. But you've made a significant thing, and you should do that. At this point today, imagine how we would have been celebrating that we have the first female speaker and representing Lagos State on International Women's Day. It would have been a beautiful thing to see.
I have to ask about, I worry about, precedents, right? We've seen this on a global stage with what's happening with, the United States president. We're seeing this with Congo. We're seeing impunity, and it just, with such callousness, if you will, And it makes you wonder, with this return or reinstatement of Speaker Obasa back as Speaker of the House, what precedents does this set?
It sets a terrible precedent. And I think when people are going and talking about this, people don't really realize that we are complaining about this because of it's like a seed that's been planted. We are complaining about the tree that is going to grow into in the future. This first attack on democracy started with the elections, right? In recent times, with the elections where a huge amount of people wanted to vote, they were denied of their ability to vote, they were hurt, they were wounded, they were beaten, some people died, right? In the same Lagos State. Now, people would clap for it because it benefited them, right? It did not affect them. They gained from it. But you see, the idea of violence and that kind of behavior is eventually it will get to you, because you're now normalizing a certain means of taking power. So that means that anytime that same group of people want to take power, because they got away with it with the electorate, they will get away with it with you. And that is, the chicken literally came home to roost with their own state assembly members, where you would think that you are called an honorable for a reason, that you will be respected, that you sit in the state assembly, and over 36 of you voted to choose the person that will represent you. And somebody came and said, no, your vote does not matter. We will use force, we will use our intimidation, and we will get what we want. And this normalization of violence, because the power should be gotten from two ways. Either we know that we are fighting a war, and we are using the barrel of a gun to get power, or we are using a ballot box. The issue now is they're now creating this middle one, where it's like an appearance of democracy, but backed by force and intimidation. And we need to get away from that, because slowly we're going back. We can potentially become a banana republic, where it's about who is stronger, who has more violence, which is what has been happening, that will be able to take power. And that will affect everybody.
Very interesting literary, what's it called? How do you call it? Necklace? I don't know. The barrel of the gun versus the ballot.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
there was
is it
another one.
metaphors?
There's a metaphor, exactly.
Yeah.
There was another one he said from before. I can't remember what it was, but it's very.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
the chicken coming home. to
Yeah,
roost. So
Yeah.
in the sense you're saying, okay, this is what you designed, and so you
So
beget
you,
it.
you must be ready
that's
for
what,
the
that's what the
repercussions.
state assembly members
According to
witnessed.
you, of course.
No, but no, even forget according to me. We saw the armed men come to the state assembly. I'm sure that the state assembly, when they were making that vote, they would never have imagined that this would be the reaction. These are not children. These, each of them represents hundreds of thousands of human beings.
And sorry to cut you. As you're saying that, it just reminds me that the House of Assembly, whether state or federal, should be autonomous.
Yes, that's what they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be check and balance to the governor.
So to check on what you're saying now, you're telling us that come the next cycle, the majority of the senators who we see that opposed Obasa now would not get a second seat, would not get another seat. So if that happens, then you're absolutely correct, and Nigerians should take note of that.
If Nigerians have to wait for that to happen, then they are not ready. They are not yet serious people. And I believe Nigerians from the last election, at least in Lagos State, and in Nigeria as a whole, showed a certain level of seriousness and desire for a positive change. What I'm saying is looking at the antecedents of the current president, the political party, they are not a forgiving group of people. They are exceptionally vindictive. You look at the way the situation of El-Rufai played out with President Tinubu, and you notice that there was a time where El-Rufai would come to Lagos and say people should get together and vote out their emperor and all that. But then he then went and was one of the major polls that got the northern governors to all come together and get behind Bola Ahmed Tinubu. But then we see what then happened later on. There are many, many examples of this. If they happen to do what they say they will do, okay. But I think with this show of shame, Lagosians should start to desire a state assembly that is independent and whose sole focus is their interest, not the interest of sustaining state capture. I think the time has come for that.
I think that's a good
That's
note
the way
to
to
end
close
this.
it, yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Prof.
so much
for
for having me.
coming through always.
so much.
And we're looking forward to see whether these predictions would follow through, as you have said,
Thank
in
you.
this
Well, he's wearing all
math
white.
problem of Lagos
He's
State.
wearing all white, so that's prophecy. Yeah, he's clairvoyant. You know, you're clair and voyant, clairvoyant. There we go.
Thank you.